What's going on, people? LP2000 right back at you with another video. Yes, welcome back to Leslie Chambers Kaiju Reviews on behalf of Summit Kaiju. And yes, welcome to this newest installment of this new series I got on my channel called X Plus Setups. And today we're looking at my X Plus setup devoted to the 1964 classic film. Not that film, but yes, the other classic 1964 Kaiju film, Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. And as you can see, I have all the monsters from this epic film here with the 25cm Godzilla 1964, the 25cm King Ghidorah 1968, 25cm Rodan 1964, as well as the 25cm Mothra Larva 1968. And with these four comprise this awesome monster lineup from this awesome, great Kaiju epic movie. Yes. So we're going to talk about these figures, how I come to collect them, and I also will talk about the film because it is such an awesome film. Yes, it is. Once again, this is X Plus Setups. You know, my previous video of X Plus Setup I devoted to Destroy All Monsters, you know, to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the film this year. So I figured, you know what, let's talk about another great film where I incorporate X Plus figures to create setups. And Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster is one of those films. You know, I have a couple more ideas for this series. It won't be like a long series, but I have a couple more ideas for a couple more videos. And more likely, you probably will see at least two or three monsters in this lineup again when I talk about that particular film in the next installment of X Plus Setups. Alright, so let's go down by each monster and talk about the release dates and when I come to collect them and blah, 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 blah. And actually, you know what? Let's start with either King Ghidorah or Rodan, because I covered these two. Actually, I covered all three. King Ghidorah, Rodan, and Mothra in my Destroy All Monsters video. So I probably won't rehash a lot of the details there. I will skim over a little bit. I mean, I'll gloss over a little bit, just give you basically just the, you know, just the Cliff Notes version of these figures. You know, since I already talked about them in the Destroy All Monsters video. First and foremost, let's talk about Rodan, 1964 Rodan 25cm. Such an awesome sculpt of Rodan. My favorite version of Rodan. You know, nothing against the 1956 version, you know, or 1968 version, but this version of Rodan is so amazing to me. They made two of these figures, X Plus did, and this form 25cm as well as a 30. Both are awesome sculpts. Honestly, I kind of lean towards this version. I just like this more darker version of the figure. You know, the face looks more fierce, so I kind of gravitate more so to this one. Rodan was initially released, I believe, 2013. I didn't get my hands on it until like maybe 2014. I think midsummer around 2014. I got the standard, the ripboard that came with it came with with one mini Mothra larva from the film, you know. But once again, I'm glad I got this version of Rodan. Mothra 1968 larva that came with the Mothra Manda set. Once again, I talked about that in the Destroy All Monsters video. I got it through Eric Arrington. You know, it came with the Mothra Manda ripboard set. You know, and this version of Mothra, you know, can double for the Mothra from the film. You know, I don't think X Plus will get around to making a standalone Mothra larva from the film. So I'm fine with just the stand-in. Kind of like the 25cm Gigan 1972 that you can put with the Godzilla's Megalon setup. Mind you, that version of Gigan is not the exact version that was in the film. The film version of Gigan in 1973 had the body was pretty much the same, but his head was a little bit altered. You know, his face was a little bit altered. You know, but as far as X Plus is concerned, they have not gotten around to make a 1973 Gigan just yet. So you use the 72 as a substitution for the setup. Same thing with the Mothra larva. You know, this Mothra larva looks exactly how he or she did in 1964, even though it's a 1968 version. And of course, King Ghidorah. 1968 King Ghidorah. You know, we've been through this, you know, a couple times in past videos. You know, came out late 2014, you know, early 2015. Great figure. However, you know, with the whole shipping fiasco with Ame and how they were shipped over here, and a lot of these figures were damaged, you know, just we've been through this, you know, but knock on wood, mine didn't come in damaged, you know, and this King Ghidorah is amazing. It really is amazing, and it's such a vital piece in my collection. For one, I'm a huge King Ghidorah fan. He's my favorite villain out of all the Godzilla villains, and he's very vital when it comes to certain setups, like this setup, or Monster Zero setup, Godzilla vs. Gigan setup, you know. So this figure is amazing. Really is amazing. And the ripboard version of this figure came with the little mini flying dragon saucer, as well as a regular flying saucer from Destroy All Monsters. You know, but I'm glad I just got the standard. You know, not really feeling those peanut butter cup looking things. Yes, King Ghidorah is amazing. There are rumors that they're gonna retool this version of King Ghidorah, make a 1964. You want to learn more about that? Check out the Kaiju Cast video that Mr. Kyle Yount, the awesome Kyle Yount, did with our most, you know, the man from X Plus, G. Okamoto. You know, he did an interview with him a couple months back, and Mr. Okamoto alluded in the video that they're gonna try and bring out a King Ghidorah 1964 and retool it from this sculpt of 1968 King Ghidorah. So check it out. It's on the Kaiju Cast YouTube channel. Check out that video. It's really awesome. So I'm looking forward to see if they actually do that, you know. Because honestly, when it comes to King Ghidorah, the 1964 is like my favorite version of King Ghidorah. You know, of course, he reappeared in 1965. They really didn't change the suit between 64 and 65, so it's pretty much the same King Ghidorah suit. But there are, you know, subtle differences in between that version of King Ghidorah and this one. 1964 looks a lot more fierce. He looks a lot more intimidating. Now, don't get me wrong, this version of King Ghidorah is no slouch either, but in between the two, I prefer the 64. So if they're able to do a retool 64 out of this sculpt, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. And last but not least, let's talk about the king of the monsters himself, Godzilla 1964. Of course, you already know. Y'all already know what time it is. It's my favorite version of Godzilla. For my favorite movie of Godzilla, Mothra vs. Godzilla. You know, they brought this suit back in this film. You know, because basically Mothra vs. Godzilla and Ghidorah 3 the Monster were made within the same year. Basically almost 5 or 6 months apart from each other. Almost 8 months apart. So they brought back this version of Godzilla, the same suit. They retooled the head a little bit, where, you know, he has a less sinister look, because in the film, you know, Godzilla is gradually becoming more of a heroic figure versus being a villain, sinister figure. So they brought this suit back, and this is, once again, it's the X Plus 25cm Godzilla 1964. It came out 2012, I believe. The ripboard version of this figure came with 2 mini Mothra larvae. Ironically, at the time of this recording, they're going to bring out another Mothra 1964 25cm figure, Rick Boy. It's going to be a ripboard release, and it's going to come with light up eyes, and it's going to come with 2 mini Mothra larvas. One is like kind of like straightened a little bit, and the other one is curled. So basically, what they're doing is they're taking the ripboard option of this Godzilla figure and putting them with the Mothra 1964 figure to create that figure. You know what I mean? And once again, like I said, the ripboard came with 2 mini Mothra larvas, and I got the standard. And I've gotten this recently, thanks to Tyler Boots Carlson, because once again, like I said, this thing has been out. It was released since 2012, and you don't really see this guy out there that often. You know, once again, it's a solid release, a solid 64 from X Plus, and this, honestly, this one has been like the one I've been kind of sleeping on for years. You know, because everybody loves the 30 centimeter. You know, the ripboard 30 centimeter with the blue dorsal plates. You know, everybody loves that figure. You know, so I think a lot of folks tend to sleep on this one. And I was one of those people. You know, for a while, I wasn't really feeling on getting this figure. You know. But now I got it in hand, it really is a solid representation. You know, whether you have this one, you know, the 30, the gigantic, all of them are awesome figures, and all of them shine in their own individual way. But once again, having this 25 centimeter in front of me makes me wish I could have gotten this a whole lot sooner. You know, it really is an amazing piece, and I hope X Plus does reissue this particular version of Godzilla. And as you can see, he scales well with King Ghidorah. For the longest, I used to use my 30 centimeter Godzilla 1964 to create this setup. And, you know, even though it looked good, it didn't look size accurate. You know, Godzilla should not be so big in comparison to King Ghidorah. King Ghidorah should be the biggest monster out of all of them. And he is to a certain extent because of his wings or whatever. But with the 30 centimeter 64, you know, he was just too big for the setup to be just right, you know? And sometimes I can be OCD with my setups. I want things to be just right, just like how it was in the film. I'm sure like a lot of folks out there are. But every monster here is in scale with each of the other monsters. And I like that, you know? Once again, thank you to Tyler Boots Carlson for helping me get this. I really do appreciate it. And that's basically the lineup, you know. It's not a long lineup like the Strong Monsters, you know. Just basically four of the most iconic monsters Toho has ever brought, you know, to us, you know, to the fans, to pop culture, you know, whatever. Such an amazing lineup. I am really feeling this lineup, you know. Once again, X Plus has done a fantastic job with each one of these monsters, you know. Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, King Ghidorah, you know what I mean? And once again, they've done a fantastic job, you know, and this creates a really great setup for one of the best Godzilla films out there. And speaking of Godzilla films, let's talk about Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster just a little bit before we roll up out of here. And when it comes to Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster, once again, this is one of my most favorite Godzilla films of all time. It's like number 4 on my top 10 list, you know. Of course, they made 2 versions, you know, the American version and Japanese version. You know, it's not really much a big difference between 2 versions. But I kind of lean towards the American version. But both of them, like, kind of suffer from continuity issues, you know. Like in the Japanese version. Sometimes some certain scenes don't flow together. Like, for example, when Godzilla first appears in the film, you know, he rises up out of the ocean, he destroys the ship, you know, and then that's it, you know. And when that happens, it's clearly at night, you know, or it's clearly dusk when that happens. But then in the next scene, they cut to, you know, to the scene where the scientists are around the asteroid, also known as King Ghidorah's egg, and it's clearly daytime. But then they cut back to the city, you know, where the princess is in the hotel with the girl, you know, before Godzilla comes in and attacks the city, and it's clearly nighttime, you know. But, you know, it's just little issues like that. The American version is not really better because in that same scene when Godzilla comes to the city, you know, in the American version when Godzilla first appears in the city, you see folks running, frantic, panicking because they know Godzilla is on his way. And they show Godzilla, you know, on the dock, you know, he raises his hands up, he roars, and he starts walking. Then they cut to a shot of Godzilla in the ocean before he makes landfall. Then they cut back to a scene where Godzilla's back on land again in the same spot that he was before when he starts raising his arms or whatever and roaring. You know, once again, the American version didn't really do right by that scene either. But I tend to lean towards the American version. You know, I think the American version did did the film more so an improvement. It improved on the pacing a little bit. It added more sound effects, which I thoroughly enjoy because, sometimes sound effects can really enhance the scene, especially when the monsters are not on screen. The fact that you can hear them, in the background, it just makes you constantly aware that they're there, and they're not going away. So I think the American version did a better job with its presentation of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. And honestly, it's not the first Americanization of a film that I find superior. King Kong vs. Godzilla, I know a lot of folks are not really feeling the American version because of the American scenes being inserted. But I kind of like the American version of King Kong vs. Godzilla better. Godzilla 1985 for the same way, even though Godzilla 1984 is more of a grounded film, more gritty film. And 1985, inserts those films with a comedy with the American actors. But still, I love 1985 a whole lot more than I love the Japanese version of Godzilla 1984. Godzilla 2000, the same thing. I mean, Godzilla 2000 just did a better job improving on what the Japanese version of Godzilla 2000 presented, So there are examples where the American version are somewhat better than the original Japanese version. But speaking of Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster, there are a few noteworthy things about this film that I want to talk about before I talk about the film more so. And what about this film is so noteworthy? The fact that, for one, Godzilla, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, this film marks the first time where they start to gradually change his character from villain to hero. It was a gradual change. It wasn't like, okay, he's evil now, but then he just pops up like, okay, I'm ready to save the world. It was more so a gradual change. And in my opinion, Godzilla didn't really become a full superhero until Godzilla vs. Ghidorah, because all the films leading up to that point, with Monster Zero, Sea Monster, Son of Godzilla, Destroy Monsters, Godzilla would still do heelish things. He would still do destructive things that was not in humanity's best interest. And he didn't become, like I said, a real superhero until Godzilla vs. Ghidorah, especially Godzilla vs. Gigan and Megalon and so on. So this film is noteworthy for actually starting that change of Godzilla's character, because little children starting to get more behind him, and rightfully so. So Toho wanted to cater to that. You know what I mean? This film marks the first time we ever seen King Ghidorah, in the film. Awesome villain, awesome kaiju, awesome impressive performance in this film, which I'll talk about later on. This is the first time they included Rodan into the Godzilla universe. With the previous film, Mothra vs. Godzilla, they already included Mothra into the universe. Now we got Rodan. So yes, very, very noteworthy of that. And let's talk about the actors a little bit, Takashi Shimura, I believe I'm pronouncing his name right. He was Dr. Tsukamoto in the film. He was a doctor that was helping the princess, go through shock treatments to try to regain her memory of who she really is, And upon research, and actually, if you really look at him, he's actually Dr. Yamane from the original Godzilla film. Of course, he played, other great characters in the Akira Kurosawa films, like Yojimbo, Seven Samurai, but we Kaiju fans know him better as Dr. Yamane from 1954 as well as 1955. He also was a newspaper editor in Mothra 1961, and he plays a doctor here in this film. But his look is so drastically changed that you can't really tell that it's actually him, but it really is him, And this is the last time that we ever see him in a Godzilla film. Now, he would go on to play a doctor in Frankenstein Conquers the World a year later, but this is the last Godzilla film he ever appeared in. So I found that to be very noteworthy. And of course, as far as actors, the Peanuts, the beautiful young girls that played the fairies, or the Shaobujin, Mothra's fairies, in the film. This is the last time that they will play this role in a Godzilla film. They played these roles in Mothra 1961, of course, Mothra vs. Godzilla 1964, and in this film. And honestly, their performances in each one of those films is so amazing. And it's kind of hard for me to decipher which one was their better performance, because they've both done a great job in their respective roles in their respective films, that I just can't pick which one of the three is the best, because they're all good. They're really all good. Now, mind you, they were incorporate other females to fulfill those roles. Like I said, this was the last time that they did it in this film. But they got a different pair in Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster, as well as the Heisei film Godzilla vs. Mothra, Tokyo SOS, and other subsequent Mothra films. But to me, the Peanuts were and always will be the best version of those fairies. You know, they were very, very relatable. They were likable. They could actually sing because they were really pop artists back in the day, or artists or singers back in the day. So all that, they just captivated you, you know. Even though it was kind of ridiculous, you know, with them being 6 inches high or blood, you know, or whatever. But it doesn't bother me. It doesn't take away my overall enjoyment of them in those particular films. So once again, once you pop down in the comment section what you feel is the best film they were involved in, you know. Once again, it's hard. It really is hard, you know. So that was very noteworthy about Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster. And let me tell you 5 things that I love so much about this film, and hopefully I will get you more into it. You know, because I'm sure that there are a few people out there that don't really care for this film, but I'm sure there are a good majority of people that do. First and foremost, the first thing, King Ghidorah, awesome, just an impressive performance. You know, he's just a wild, chaotic, just evil-driven kaiju in this film. In my opinion, the best performance of King Ghidorah. Hence why I love him so much and why he's my favorite kaiju villain of all time, you know. Other films involving King Ghidorah, I really do enjoy, you know, like Monster Zero, Destroy All Monsters, especially Godzilla vs. Gigan, especially Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, 1991. But it's something about this film that makes him stand out a little bit more. Like, this was, in my opinion, this was the peak of King Ghidorah. And ever since then, he's been like on a downward spiral in a way. Doesn't mean that he's a bad character. Doesn't mean that the films that came after that were bad. It's just that, to me, this was the best film involving King Ghidorah. He wasn't controlled by any aliens. He was just a frantic, wild, chaotic-driven, evil, planet-destroying demon that came down, that it took not 1, not 2, but 3 gigantic, you know, powerful monsters to bring him down. That's how much of a threat King Ghidorah was in this film. And you can't get no better than this, or this version of King Ghidorah. Maybe you can argue Monster Zero just a little bit, maybe. But in my opinion, as far as like performance-wise, look-wise, this is the best version of King Ghidorah. And it's one of the reasons why I recommend this film. Number 2, the music. Oh my God, Akira Ifukube did a great job with the music. You know, you have Godzilla's theme mixed in there. And then you have the thing that he used for Rodan the Unbelievable. And he mixed that in there, as well as King Ghidorah's theme, and he weaved everything all into this awesome score. Like Mothra vs. Godzilla, which also featured an awesome score. Ifukube did a great job with the score. You know, which is one of the reasons why, even though I prefer the American version of Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster, you know, it makes me appreciate the Japanese version even more, because in the American version, you don't really hear a lot of, or at least you don't really hear the full score of Akira Ifukube's work, you know, on the film, which is kind of sad. But just the music, oh my God, it just brings you into the kaiju action, you know. Like I said, the blending themes of Godzilla, you know, the revamped version of the Varan theme, and then you got King Ghidorah's theme. Oh my God, great, awesome music. So yeah, another reason why you should love this film. The music is very spectacular. Number 3, the story. The story in the film leading up to the monster action, the human story, is really good. Maybe not as strong as Mothra vs. Godzilla or Monster Zero, but it really is a great story, you know, with the princess and, you know, the assassination attempts, you know, to try to kill her, you know, and they think that they have succeeded when her plane bombs, and then, you know, how she survives, we don't know, but then she pops up in Japan, claiming that she's a prophetess from Mars in the American version, from Venus in the Japanese version, and basically, it basically goes back to the monsters, because, you know, when she pops up, she basically predicts that all these disasters are about to happen, you know, and it actually does happen. You know, Rodan comes back, Godzilla comes back, and then, you know, she gives us information about a monster that's more powerful, more deadly than the both of them combined, King Ghidorah, and it's just a great story. Once again, like I said, maybe not as strong as Mothra vs. Godzilla or Monster Zero, but it still is an interesting and engaging story nonetheless that brings you into it, you know, and it's not making you count down or, okay, when Godzilla's going to show up, when is Rodan going to show up, you know. It really is an interesting, engaging story. Number two, and excuse me, number four, the kaiju sequences. That's the one. That's one reason why I actually like this version over Monster Zero. You know, don't get me wrong. I love Monster Zero. Once again, Monster Zero is in my top 10 too. He's like that movie falls in like number 8, number 9, but this film falls in number 4. And the reason I view this film higher is because of the kaiju sequences. What I love most about this film is the fact that all these events, all these random events, are just happening at once. You know, you have Rodan coming back. He starts causing destruction and trouble. Then you have Godzilla come back on top of that. Then you have King Ghidorah appears out of nowhere on top of that. You know, and all these things happen at the same time, you know? And you're looking at it from the Japanese people's eyes. How are we going to deal with the situation where you have all these monsters here, you know, destroying the world? How are we going to deal with this? And the one thing about the kaiju sequences, especially once they get going, is like, you know, they cut back and forth in between Godzilla and Rodan, you know, fighting or going through their skirmish. Then they cut to King Ghidorah flying around and causing trouble and destruction and all this other stuff. It keeps you engaged. Then it shows Mothra coming in, you know, wanting to bring Godzilla and Rodan together. You know, which is kind of something that's kind of glossed over. You know, how Mothra really is really like one of the selling points of this film. You know, because of course, you know, they say that King Ghidorah is such a powerful threat. You know, he has destroyed, you know, the entire civilization of Mars, you know, within like a month or something like that. So they really pose this idea that maybe King Ghidorah will not only destroy Japan, but he may go to Infinite Island and destroy Mothra. And Mothra in her state obviously cannot deal with King Ghidorah. I would argue Mothra in her adult stage is no match for King Ghidorah. So in essence, even though they don't come out and say it, Mothra needs Godzilla and Rodan just as much as Godzilla and Rodan need Mothra when Mothra does her thing in the final battle to bring King Ghidorah down. But between that, the fight, you know, even the convergence of both of all three of the monsters, Godzilla, Mothra, and Rodan, you know, Mothra is trying to get them to cooperate. And of course, you know, even though it's kind of silly of them really communicating, it really is engaging, and it really is, you know, more so believable that Godzilla and Rodan are not quick to jump in on behalf of humanity, because they already know for years humanity has done their best to try to kill them, try to get rid of them. So Godzilla and Rodan is like, hey, no, we're not feeling that. You know what I mean? We want to do our own thing. You know, we don't want to just jump in and just help because you asked us to. You know, especially on behalf of them, because they have done their best to get rid of us. So you kind of understand from Rodan and Godzilla's perspective of why they would not want to deal with it. You know, they want to do their own thing. But even Mothra's like, you know what? Forget y'all. I do my own thing. And she goes on to try and fight King Ghidorah by herself, which is once again, it's a brave attribute. You know, Mothra's really a brave character. You know, she demonstrated that in Mothra vs. Godzilla when she agrees to fight Godzilla knowing that she's dying. And in this film, she does the same thing. When she tries to convince Rodan and Godzilla to help, they don't want to do it. So she's like, you know what, I do it myself. Which prompts Godzilla and Rodan like, you know what, okay, let's help her. Which leads to a great kaiju battle, in which Godzilla tries to take down King Ghidorah alone. He can't do it. Rodan tries to take down King Ghidorah and eventually gets cornered by King Ghidorah. He's unsuccessful. Mothra tries to bring him down, obviously. She's unsuccessful. So it took the combined efforts of all three monsters attacking King Ghidorah at the exact same time to bring him down. And the fight sequences are really good. Even the fight scene is very long. King Ghidorah does not go down real quickly as he did in Monster Zero. But it was a long, lengthy fight, you know, which I really thoroughly enjoyed, which also beefs up the threat that King Ghidorah is in this film. Once again, it goes back to his performance, the most impressive performance of King Ghidorah. And the last thing that I love about this film and why I recommend this film to everybody is the fact that this film basically features, like I mentioned, 4 of the most iconic monsters ever brought to us by Toho Studios. These 4 are basically the foundation of what Toho Studios is today. You know what I mean? Of course, Godzilla is the real reason why all the monsters are here, but I think that King Ghidorah, Mothra, and Rodan deserves as much credit as Godzilla does for bringing us all these great monsters to us. You know, Gigan, Hedra, Mechagodzilla, Biollante, Space Godzilla, Destroyer, Mega Garrus, Orga, all these monsters, you know, I think owe a debt of gratitude to these four, you know. And aside from Destroy All Monsters and Final Wars, and notwithstanding the upcoming Godzilla 2 King of the Monsters from Legendary, which all four of these monsters are going to be a part of that film, you know, I think that this is the best film involving these four, you know. And, you know, it's kind of puzzling and baffling why we didn't see more so of these four together in the same film, you know. But I think that this is the best film involving these four. And I think, you know, like I said, you know, every monster, or at least all the Toho films, at least Kaiju films, owes a debt of gratitude to this film and to these monsters in particular for being the foundation of why Toho Studios and why Godzilla films and Kaiju films from Toho, you know, are the best in the world and don't let anybody else tell you different. So those are the 5 reasons why I love Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster. You know, it's such an iconic, awesome film. Does it have silly moments? Yeah, but it doesn't really go too overboard with the silliness like you would see in, let's say, Godzilla vs. Megalon or Terra Mecha Godzilla. You know, it features an awesome villain. It features my favorite suit of Godzilla, my favorite version of Rodan. They're fighting, you know, the heroic, brave character of Mothra, the awesome music, the great human story, great special effects. You put all that together and you get a great, awesome Kaiju standout film from the Godzilla series, Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster. So that pretty much concludes my video of X Plus setups devoted to all 4 monsters of this awesome film, Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster, with the X Plus 25cm Godzilla 1964, X Plus 25cm Rodan 1964, 25cm Mothra Larva 1968, as well as King Ghidorah 25cm 1968. You have any questions? Holler me down in the comment section, or hit me up on Facebook via Leslie P. Chambers, and we'll definitely go from there. Yes, man, such an awesome setup. Also, one more thing. Stay tuned until the end of the video, because then you'll see what is coming up next on my next video on Leslie Chambers Kaiju Reviews. Yes, but if you have all these monsters, put them all together and just relish in this awesome setup of one of the best Godzilla films out there in Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster with 25cm Godzilla, Rodan, King Ghidorah, and Mothra. And trust me, you will not be disappointed when you do. Alright? So I thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And I will see y'all again on the next Figure Move review. Alright? Y'all take it easy.